Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we are joined by Anisa from the Unplugged project. So we're just gonna get a deep dive into who Anisa is, what she's about, and inshallah get some hints and tips along the way, inshallah. Anisa, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone doing? I hope everybody who's listening is doing well, inshallah. Thank you, and Zamzam, for having me on your platform. I am so honored, inshallah, to be here and to share knowledge.
Great, great, brilliant. So let's just get a background on you, Anisa. Tell us all about you. So right now you're in the UAE.
Yes.
Great, and
Um,
can you give us
so,
like a little bit of a whirlwind tour? Say, who are you? Where are you from? What do you say?
so just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background on who I am. Like you said, my name is Anisa, and I'm actually from London. My accent's a bit washed out, so I apologize. I'm from London,
Yeah.
born and raised, and I moved to the UAE 9 years ago in 2011 to pursue a teaching job. And if you think about the timing back then, it was very rare and very unheard of. Now, mashallah, a lot of people are coming out,
Mm,
but in 2011 it was like, what are you doing?
yeah.
But for me, it was, I was in my second year of uni. I was studying to be a teacher, and I kind of felt like I wasn't doing, or I couldn't gain as much knowledge or as much learning in the classroom.
Yeah.
Some people learn different, and I knew I would learn better in the
Mm,
field. So I decided to just take a year to go and work abroad. At that time, they just needed a college diploma for everybody wondering, how did
yeah.
I go without finishing university? The
Yeah.
requirements at that time were a lot lower.
Yeah.
But of course, that's changed now. So don't think you can just come.
It's not simple
Um,
anymore.
no, alhamdulillah, it's for the better that they changed. So when I came, I ended up just loving Abu Dhabi. So I moved to Abu Dhabi, which is the capital city of the UAE. I am not in Dubai. Everyone asking, Dubai is 2 hours away. Um, so I ended up moving to Abu Dhabi, working in a British private school for 2 years, and even throughout that experience, I was always kind of like settled. I ended up finishing my studies online, and then doing a couple of certificates out here as well, just to kind of add to what I was already learning.
Mm,
Um, the main reason for me leaving London to pursue teaching abroad was I felt like there was no better teacher than the actual world. So,
mm,
yes, it was a huge risk for a young Somali
yeah.
Muslim
Yeah.
girl to
Yeah.
leave her
Yeah.
family, to leave everything I've always known and go somewhere I've never been. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
I never saw the UAE before I came. I never did the whole Dubai trip.
So
My
you
mom
just
used to go
you just
without
went
us.
one way
I
ticket
just
sort of
went.
thing.
I just
This.
went.
Yeah.
I
I
just
just
went.
I'm getting anxious like a mother. Like, oh my goodness, where are you
I
going?
literally just went,
So
and
so
subhanAllah,
alhamdulillah, it worked out
it did,
all
yeah.
right. But yeah,
It
your
did.
first year must have been a big learning curve or something, right?
The first year, I would even say the first 2 years. The first 2 years,
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do. There were so many things that were new to me. I was new to me. I don't know if that
Yeah, yeah,
sentence will make sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I was a new me, and I had to get to know this independent young woman that I was
Mm,
becoming. I
mm,
wasn't a daughter, I wasn't the niece and nephew, I wasn't anything. I just had to learn how to survive on my own, how to ask Allah for help instead of turning around and like phoning family. And I say that
yeah,
because when you have support and family members and stuff, as much as you pray for God to help you, it is easier to pick up the phone and be like, hey, can you come and do A, B, and C for me? But when you look around, you haven't got anyone
yeah,
except God. You
yeah,
learn to have no trust in anyone else
yeah.
but Allah.
Tawakkal man through the roof,
It
huh?
went, it went sky high, Like literally, think about it. No one knew where I was sleeping except Allah. If anything happens, if I didn't wake up in the middle of the night, if I didn't wake up after going to sleep, nobody would have known.
Allah
Do you know what I
understand.
mean? So
That
like
is,
the immense power of tawakkul that I learned within
mm,
the first few years, and everybody asked me, how did you do it? And I'm like, I had no other choice but to put my trust in the one and only. And I
Wow.
promise you,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, he never let me down.
Allah.
Even on my worst days, like even
Yeah.
throughout all the trials and things that happened afterwards, Allah still never let me down, you know? So alhamdulillah, I'm grateful for all of that always. And I
Wow.
promise, I always talk about it. I will always talk about the fact that
Yeah.
I'm here because of Allah's grace, you know?
Yeah.
That's all that's
SubhanAllah.
keeping me, you know? So
That's
I
deep.
ended up staying.
Right? So how do you end up just going to sea to actually, and then being a sort of employee to now being and a entrepreneur, like actual employer almost? Like
Yeah.
how
So
did that happen? That was a huge switch, right?
that was a huge stress. So my personal life actually had a huge change. I ended up getting married. I met someone out here. And so that actually added to me staying. So not only was I
Yeah.
excelling in my career and I was excelling in my work life, I actually ended up just making this my temporary home.
Yeah.
And 3 years into that marriage, when it didn't work and I found myself getting divorced, I, I had to really look at and reevaluate everything and where I was heading,
Yeah.
especially with my career. And I
Mm,
felt like I was in a very comfortable spot at work. Like I had a comfortable position. I knew what I was doing year in, year out. And as a teacher, you can get really complacent. You can get really comfortable with your classroom, with your routine. It's
yeah.
very easy to do that. But on the other side, I had a very like human connection with a lot of the parents, a lot of the families, a lot of the people that I worked with. I was emotionally connected to their actual well-being. And I
Yeah.
say this because when you're in the UK, you can separate your work and your family life. But when you work abroad, your work is really connected to your actual life. So
Yeah.
these students that walk in become a part of your life, become a part of your everyday. These parents that come in and drop their children off, they become advisories to you. You ask them questions
Yeah.
about things, and you connect with them, and they tell you about the place. They genuinely become your friends, and so their well-being meant a lot to me. So by the final year of before I decided to resign and start my business, as I was going through my own personal turmoil of the divorce and everything, a lot of parents were coming to me and complaining about their children's and the way that their children were using their devices and the fact that their children were not focusing, were not
Mm.
eating. And this was 2016, 2017, that
Well,
academic year.
yeah, that's and back then it wasn't like now.
Well, yes and no. Back then, and in this part of the world, it's a little bit different because there is way more access to technology because families here can afford it. That's the
Yeah.
most simplest thing I can say is they
Yeah.
can afford to purchase
Yeah.
iPads and phones per child. Therefore, the access is a lot more affordable. If it's
Yeah.
not with the children, it's in their cars. Most new cars in the UAE and parents purchase these huge
Yeah.
cars all have the back seat with the screens. So it's like you've got the car ride to school in the morning with the screens. You've got the iPad, you've got the phone, you've got, you can even go into a shopping mall in the UAE and the little baby carts where you push the little kids have iPad screens on them. When I
Mm,
tell you devices are everywhere, it
mm,
was everywhere then and it's even more so now. So
mm.
a lot of parents were sharing their turmoil with me and sharing, asking me for advice of what to do with their kids. Where should their kids go? After they finish school, they just want to watch TV or they just want to be on an iPad or on the phone,
Yeah.
playing games. So it was these two huge things that were happening simultaneously. I
Yeah.
was trying to figure out what my next move is, and parents were
Yeah.
coming to me complaining, crying, and I was looking for solutions. So
Yeah.
fast forward, I decided to then really just look into providing solutions. Now, in the UK, you could possibly provide a solution without having to leave your job. But at the time when I was looking into like giving solutions in the form of like workshops and after school clubs and stuff, it involved me actually giving it my all, which meant
Yeah.
leaving work, leaving my comfort, leaving a
I,
full salary,
I started just thinking about it.
leaving all of that
All
again.
the whole
I
comfort,
just
security, it's all gone.
everything
So
everything
what do
like
you see? And you just jumped, yeah?
my talk. I told you my talk got even stronger.
Bismillah,
So
this
I
is
just
serious.
said,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just prayed, I prayed on it, and then Kids Unplugged was born. That was the initial
It's
start.
on. Okay.
I started with Kids Unplugged, and that was me literally throwing so many different things in my car, driving around to schools, nurseries, homes, and just putting together this one or two different workshops that I would provide for parents and families. So if their child was showing signs of screen addiction, I'd be like Ghostbusters, and they'd call Kids Unplugged, and we'd come and provide so many different things and alternatives, and it worked. But it was a one-man team, so
Yes,
it
wow.
was incredibly. The first few years were incredibly exhausting because
Yeah,
I was full on.
yeah,
And we've been doing this for 3 years now. So on the last year in 2019, alhamdulillah, I was able to raise enough funds to
yeah.
open up the first ever digital wellbeing center called the Unplugged Initiative. And
Oh,
there is where our clients would come, and we were able to kind of grow from Kids Unplugged to the Unplugged Initiative, so we can
okay.
cater to different ages and do things for not only the kids, the teenagers, also for the parents and the nannies,
Yeah,
so that they can be equipped to kind of deal with screen addiction front on.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
alhamdulillah,
Okay, fantastic. Okay,
yeah,
so our main audience here is a lot of parents.
okay.
They would really love to know how to get their kids not addicted. Go on, give us your top tips.
So it really it varies between, you know, the communities and the child, the age, but there's some very basic things that I think that we think are so easy, we should know this already, but it really is that simple.
Yeah,
Number one, when you as a parent are purchasing a device, there needs
yeah,
to be a purpose for the device, right? I'll
okay.
give you a good example. When you purchase a toy for them, or when you purchase like an item of clothing,
Yeah,
it slots into their lives really well. The toy is for playtime. The clothing is for either bedtime or going outside or whatever it's for. The item of food that you buy is for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
yeah,
Everything serves a purpose. The device needs to serve a purpose. What is it for?
okay.
It needs to serve a purpose. That's the first thing I would always say. What purpose is it serving? The second thing is to place rules in while they're using it that is child initiated. When I say child initiated rules, I
Yeah,
mean the child needs to understand before you put rules on the device. For example, if you say, eat your food and then I'll give you the iPad,
yeah,
that it just doesn't really correlate, number one, and it's also showing them a bad habit. But
yeah,
the other thing is, if you put rules into this using this device that is unattainable, or every time they've attained it, the rule just gets higher and higher, the
mm.
kids just become smarter at figuring out when to utilize it at the worst time. So it just, you
Yes,
just end up going in circles. And so
yes,
this advice I used to always take from my mom. My mom would always say, never really say no to children. Give them a time and a place for things. Because what that teaches them is two things. Either they learn to be a thief and go steal it
yeah.
from other people, or they learn to actually be conniving and deceiving and lie. And these are traits you just don't want your child to ever
So,
have.
yeah, so we're absentmindedly make giving them these traits.
Yes, and whatever we instill on young children, can I just clarify that the age group that I'm talking about in terms of anything to do
Devices.
with instilling rules and programming and
Yeah.
kind of having the cognitive development, or focusing on their cognitive development, is the 8 years and under, because this is their programming years. This is the key years,
Up
key
to 8 years old.
stages of, yes, of learning, of development, of building behaviors and building what they would say habits and different
Yeah.
mannerisms. These are the, I mean, obviously, if they're older than 8 and they've got the devices, and there's things we can also do, but the key age group
Sweet
is
spot. Yeah.
under 8 years old.
Okay.
So that would be the second thing. And the third thing I would always honestly say is, if they are using the devices far too much, then there has to be other options. One of the things that I always do with a lot of the parents that I work with is we create something called the unplugged zone. Now, the unplugged zone is an area in the home that is not the bedroom, that is not the toilet, that is not the kitchen. It's just a small corner in the room that your child can retreat to go and do whatever they want. So
Yeah.
the main focus is that there's no devices in this corner. It could literally be a couple of pillows that you stack in an area in the corner of a room, have a couple of books, have a couple of puzzles, have a couple of games. It's just everything in that area stimulates their mind and their physical being more
Mm.
than the devices. So sensory things and things
Yeah.
that they could just, and they just walk up to it. So you'll see when you have this unplugged zone available for them, they'll choose that more than the device. You'll be surprised. You will be surprised,
Mm.
you know. And then if all of that, everything I've said doesn't work, then the battery of the iPad or the device is dead. Just do that.
How about setting times for them? Is that a useful thing?
100%.
Yeah.
Like I said, the purpose. What's the
Yeah.
purpose
Okay.
of the iPad? So for now,
Things.
a lot of them will do virtual learning, right? So that's in the
Yeah.
morning
Right.
or on the weekend,
Right.
whenever the time is. So when you set the purpose, it's setting the schedule, setting the timing, and allowing your child to really understand
Yeah.
its purpose.
Okay. Would you recommend a child having? Because I know some children would have maybe a tablet and a computer. Would you think that's like too much?
My thing is this, right? Anything
Yeah.
that's overdone for young children is too much.
Yeah.
We're living in a world right now where these devices are coming. I started this project in 2017. It's now
Yeah.
2020, where
Yeah.
almost all education is virtual learning. This is
Yeah.
in a span of 3 years. What's the
Mm.
next 3 years going to look like? So I think for your own child's well-being,
Yeah.
limiting them to one device is
Yeah.
more than enough.
Yeah.
Because a lot of parents worry that if they don't use the laptop, then they won't know how to use it. You'd be surprised. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised how
Yeah.
many children
Yeah.
know how to use whatever device you give them. If you give them the remote control for the TV, and you give them
Yeah.
we had a young girl. I was working with a family, a young girl. She's 5 years old. Her dad recently bought the Tesla.
Okay.
Not recently,
Cool.
it was like a year ago, but he bought the
Yeah.
Tesla car, right? And
Yeah.
so the Tesla car has, if you've seen it, it's got a screen
Oh,
and everything.
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was sitting in the back seat of the car while her dad was explaining it to his brother. So her uncle and her dad are talking, and he's excited to talk about the Tesla,
Yeah.
blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
Everybody goes into the car, to the house.
Yeah.
She runs back out the house, gets in the car, sits in the front seat. After 5 minutes, everybody's looking for her. They come looking for her. They find her in the Tesla. And the whole time, alhamdulillah, the key wasn't there. The whole time she was talking to the screen, saying to the screen, "Take me to McDonald's. I want ice cream."
Oh.
This
Oh.
is a
They would
Tesla.
have. They would have. It would have taken her.
It would have taken her from if the key was around.
It's
She would
true.
have Tesco's. So that's what I'm saying. Do not. This is a 5-year-old. Do not
Yeah.
undermine
Wow.
young children and their ability to learn
Yeah. Yeah.
things quickly. That's why we're not in a rush. What
Yeah.
they can't learn when they're older is all the things meant for them to learn when they're younger. So the sensory,
Yeah.
the curiosity, the risk taking, all of these things that are developing key areas of their brain and their
Yeah.
cognitive development is something
Yeah.
that you can't retain later on. You can't come back for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 So like, this is a key point that if that you can either build at that time or not.
Or not? Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
only be like the brain is a muscle that functions off of the way that
Yeah.
it's stimulated. So
Yeah.
if the certain things are not meant for it to stimulate, it won't be used in anything else. So that's why a lot of the area that is used for thinking and imagination and creativity is highly linked to when they are watching something, and the fact that they're not using that part of the brain, so they just learn to have things think for themselves. And a lot of the research coming out now is
Yeah.
showing that a high number of young children are losing their sense of creativity and imagination
Yeah.
because of this,
Yeah.
so it's all interlinked as well.
Yeah. Is there a optimum number of hours that they could go on? Because this is always a big debate, you know. It's
Yeah,
a huge, well, between me and my siblings anyway.
right.
I mean,
No, I would say
yeah. Just said that there's extreme, like one of my family members, like no use at all of tablets,
yeah,
just for school reasons.
right.
And then you have the opposite sister, and she's like, whatever they want, mate. My kids. Yeah. So I don't know. Do we have a number? Is
I
anything
would
proven?
I mean, this is all like everybody does research and everybody has like different numbers that they come up with. But I
Yeah,
say play it by age. If they're under 8 years old, it
yeah.
shouldn't be more than 30 minutes a day. That's what I say.
See, that is
Under
huge.
eight,
That blows my mind because I'm
yeah.
sure, and I'm guilty of it. More than 30 minutes. I mean, just watching Moana is a big deal. Do you know
The
what I mean?
2 hour movie.
Yeah, I'm saying. So yeah,
That's what I'm saying. No,
yeah.
no, it should never be more than 30 minutes. And there's key points. Like when they are on the device, it's the device time. There's key things that I will highly and forever warn against.
Okay.
Number one, they should never eat in front of these devices.
Never
Those
eat.
two things should
Okay.
never eat in front of a device. I know us adults are guilty of movie
Yeah.
time and grabbing our snacks and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're guilty, but we can manage that. A young child should not be sitting in front of a TV and just eat for so many health reasons.
Mm.
They need to be able to manage what's going on their plate, what they're eating. It should never be used as a bribe. Eat and then I'll give you this. So when it comes to meal times, they should always sit at a table and eat and focus on what they're eating. There's absolutely no need, and I say this
Yeah.
with so much urgency, there is no need for young children to be watching anything
Yeah.
while they are eating. This is important. And
Yeah.
many doctors and pediatricians will tell you the same thing. So
That's
it's very
huge.
important for them to be able to focus on their meal. The
Is it
second thing I would
is it
sorry,
like because of the association they make with it or
100%. There's a link with obesity and screen time because a lot of children have just been eating whatever, whenever, just to kind of and don't have the understanding of starting and stopping when they start eating and stop eating because it
mm,
just goes. If they're watching a 30-minute, 40-minute, 45-minute show, they've just got hand to mouth and they're not really able to focus. Also, the other biggest thing is that this is a key time to kind of interact with young children, speak about the importance of whatever they're eating. Even if it's like for the UK, if it's cultural food, this is an important time for a parent to kind of sit with the child and say, this is what we eat for breakfast, this is what it's called. Just communication, because that's gone these days.
yeah.
Meal times are communication time, like are key for communication time. So if parents can sit with their young child at least one meal, if not all three, at least one meal,
Yeah.
to kind of have that connection.
Yeah.
But that is key. And then the second biggest key thing I always just urge a lot of parents is to be extremely, extremely mindful about what your child is watching. I cannot stress this enough.
Okay.
I promise you, I cannot. A lot of the TV shows that are cartoon based are not always the best shows for your child.
Mm,
I mean, you
mm,
can look at Simpsons, it's a cartoon. Or
yeah.
listen to Simpsons, and nothing about it is child friendly.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
lot of parents put on things, Paw Patrol, Peppa Pig, but if you listen to these
Some
type,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
just said those two because they're so obvious these days. But if you
Yeah.
just watch what these things, and even for the for the older,
Yeah.
that weird age of 9 to 12, it's like
Yeah.
that weird age where they're too young, they're too
Yeah.
old to be kids and too young to be
Yeah.
teenagers.
Yeah.
So they're now, they've got TikTok, they've got all these different things that they're seeing, but that's not age appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
language that's being used, the conversations that's being had,
Yeah.
it's very
Interesting
important.
because I speak to some parents and they feel like that the child needs to be exposed to these things. What do you think about the arguments about that?
I mean, this is where I kind of
Or
say,
as a parent, should we not feel guilty? Because I think a lot of this goes guilt because they want the child to. But then I don't know. Maybe it's just my opinion, but I don't care. It's my
yeah,
child. You watch
yeah.
whatever I say.
No,
But
I
they're like,
think
well, how are they gonna ever mature and grow? And I don't really have an answer to that.
I always just the two things I always answer with this. Number one, they have the rest of their life to be adults and just a short amount of time to be children.
Yeah,
That's it. That's all you have to understand. They have the rest of their life to be adults, but a short amount of time in the span of their life to be children. So let them be children. And number two, your child is your biggest investment. What you put into your child is what you get later on. When you are old and need help and need to be looked after, as they say, what you've inputted into your children is what you'll get. Now, a lot of the things that they're exposed to and that they can see show a lack in developing the type of character you'd want in your child. There's a lot of rude conversations happening online. There's a lot of
Yeah,
bullying. There's a lot of all these things that are happening
yeah,
that children are easily accessible to. I'm not saying monitor like a police, but have these conversations with your child. Let them know.
yeah, yeah,
Say,
yeah,
you
totally,
know
yeah,
what? These are the things you might see, and
yeah.
there will be a time for you to see it. But right now, I just think that this is
Hmm.
not age appropriate
Okay.
for all of these things. But like I always say, your child is your biggest investment, and they have
Yeah,
the rest of their life to be adults. So, yeah, you can argue with me about like I want them to know what's coming, but that's your child, and
yeah,
that is your investment. So
yeah. Okay.
if you can just shelter them a little bit longer, and
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
benefits them,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. My child's not leaving my house ever.
My
Okay,
mom,
no.
my mom tried that with me too. She's just like, "Don't leave." But when they're ready to see, and then that's the other thing. Going back to my own story of like
Yeah,
why my parent and family were okay with me leaving, is
yeah,
because they spent my whole childhood instilling in me things that I am now using as an adult woman. My
yeah,
mannerisms, the way I am with other people, the way I am socially interactive, the way that I can kind of, this whole survival mentality that I have. All of
yeah,
it stems from everything my mother inputted in me from when I was a young child.
yeah.
So that is why, as a grown woman at 20 years old, I was able to not only leave my family house for the first time, but leave my country too. So, you know,
So I get nervous when I think about that, but yeah, no, totally, totally. No, so basically you reap the rewards of the childhood, even till this day.
absolutely,
No,
absolutely.
I think you said some stuff worthy written in gold there. So I got lots of notes. I'm interested to figure out what's next for you.
Okay,
What's next
so
for Anisa? Because I know you got the project running,
right.
but go give us a headline. You talked about the last 3 years. Tell us about the next 3 years.
So we're honestly redoing a lot of things. Abu Dhabi is kind of under a lot of regulations now, and it's really difficult to run the center while everything is, socially distant. So we're closed at the moment when it comes to the center, but delivering our products and our services to the clients hasn't changed. In the next year or so, we are hoping to unveil a product that we've been working so hard on, and we're hoping that this product is able to bring the families together and have more of a family-oriented aspect to it.
Okay.
I'm also, working on my third book. I've written two books already. The first
Mashallah.
one, thank you. The first one is called How Electronics Stole Childhood. It's actually a book for parents. So
Okay.
I'll be sending you all the information and the link if parents
Okay.
want to purchase the book.
Mashallah.
Um, they're both of my books so far are ebooks at the moment. We kind of stopped publishing because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
But as soon as that's up and running again, we'll be publishing the books. And the second
Yeah.
one is Offline is the New Luxury. And it
Right.
focuses on how you can hone in on using your offline time to really work on yourself and kind of give yourself the life that you deserve. So
Is that meant for parents as well, or
that's meant for everyone. So
okay?
if you want the book, if anyone, just
On it. I'm
offline is
on
the
it.
new luxury.
On it. Yeah, that's great. And so what's the new one coming out then?
So the third book is something that I've been working on in terms of what's been happening 2020. So it's
Okay.
dealing with the virtual learning, dealing with the disconnect of actual social interactions and how we are coping as people and what the coping mechanisms will look like in the next couple of years, because we are not going to go back to how we were.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
it's
totally.
basically looking at the new normal.
Oh, that sounds very topical and interesting. We're looking for is it coming out or is it out
It
already or
is. No, it'll be out at the end of October, inshallah.
inshallah, so we'll be
I'm
sure to
excited.
keep an eye on
Yeah.
that. Anissa, you're online. I've been spying your YouTube channel. I see you do other interviews with other things there.
Right.
Obviously on social media. How can the average Joe blog communicate with you if they want to ask questions or
Right.
how do we interact with you?
So for someone who's always preaching about being unplugged, a lot of people always ask me, "Well, you're online and you're on social media, and you're on," and I always laugh about that because I'm like, if I could do my business without being unplugged, sorry, without being online, I'd be
Yeah,
offline.
yeah, خلاص.
But that's the only way I can kind of communicate with my audience.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to come back onto Facebook, to kind of interact with people. And with
Yeah,
YouTube, I started the channel to kind of showcase
yeah,
life in Abu Dhabi because a lot of people know about life in Dubai and have come to Dubai and
yeah,
done
yeah,
the
yeah,
whole Dubai
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
But Abu Dhabi is a gem on its own, and it's probably one of the most amazing cities. If you have not been, you need to come. So
okay.
my YouTube channel is very, again, purposeful and just kind of
Yeah,
sharing little anecdotes and stuff. So yes, you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on Instagram
sure.
and email. So
Okay, great. So we'll make sure to put all the details on there.
for sure.
Um, brilliant, brilliant. Love the advice. Thank you so much for your time. Really
You're
appreciate
most
it, Lisa.
welcome.
But we'll put you on in the Facebook group, and hopefully you can interact with the post when we put it out there as well.
No
And
worries.
you're online. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. We know it's really hard you take it on us. That'd be great.
No worries.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for everything. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.